Welcome to Marvelous French, in-depth French lessons for students of all levels. It's time for another lesson focused on pronunciation. This time, we'll be looking at what we call nasal vowel sounds. I have a number of other lessons on pronunciation, the alphabet, vowels, and common combinations. Links to these lessons have been included in the description box below. So let's jump into it. What are nasal vowels? Nasal sounds come from a combination of a vowel or vowels, that is, A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y, followed by the letters N or M. So here are some words with nasal sounds. Vent, train, combien, brin, point, ambition. You can see the English translation of these words in colored italics. Translations for all example words in this lesson will be provided in the same way. Notice how the N and the M in these nasal sounds are silent. So one of our example words was V-E-N-T, which is vent, and not von. We also had T-R-A-I-N, which is train, and not train. Now, although they're silent, the N and the M do trigger a nasal sound that ends in the nose. So our first example word, vent, V-E-N-T, is pronounced vent and not vo. The sound ends in the nose, vent. Also notice that N and M trigger the same nasal sound. So compare these two words, N-O-N, which means no, and N-O-M, which means name. They sound exactly the same. N-O-N, non. N-O-M, non. N and M trigger the same nasal sound when preceded by vowels. Here are the various nasal sounds that exist in French. We have en, which can be triggered by the combinations A-N, E-N, A-M, and E-M. En. This sound is produced with an open mouth and comes from the back of the throat. We also have un, which can be triggered by a number of combinations, including I-N, A-I-N, E-I-N, and so forth. Un. We have on, triggered by O-N and O-M. On. The combinations U-N and U-M give us un. Un. O-I-N gives us ouin. Ouin. I-E-N is pronounced ya. Ya. And finally, I-O-N is yon. Yon. Now it's important to note that French pronunciation is based on syllables, the smaller units that make up a word. So when we say that vowels followed by N or M trigger a nasal sound, we more specifically mean vowels followed by N or M in the same syllable. Syllables in French are usually broken up by vowels, so you might have a consonant and a vowel in a single syllable. Two consonants together are usually broken up into separate syllables. So let's take a look at some examples here. If we compare the two words chia and ingrédient, we'll see that even though they both appear to have the combination I-E-N, which we said is pronounced ya, the combination sounds different in each word. Chia, ya, but ingrédient, yan. This has to do with where the letters fall when the words are broken into syllables. Chia is one syllable, so I-E-N are together in the syllable and are pronounced ya. However, ingrédient is made up of four syllables, ingrédient. So the I toward the end of the word is actually not in the same syllable as the E-N-T. E-N in its own syllable is actually pronounced en, giving us ingrédient. So chia, ya in a single syllable, versus ingrédient. The I and the E-N are not in the same syllable, so ion. Let's look at another example. Important versus imaginer. Both start with IM, which we said tends to be pronounced un. However, the IM sounds different in the two words. Important, nasal, versus imaginer, not nasal. Again, this has to do with where the letters fall when the words are broken into syllables. Important has 3 syllables. Important. The I and M are in the same syllable, so we get our nasal A sound. The final syllable, T-A-N-T, includes A-N in the same syllable, which gives us another nasal sound, en. So, important, 2 nasal sounds. Imaginer, on the other hand, has no nasal sounds, even though we see IM and IN in the word. Imaginer has 4 syllables. Imaginer. The first I and the following M are not in the same syllable. A nasal sound is therefore not triggered. I on its own is I. M-A is ma, so ima. The I and the N in the middle of the word are also separated across 2 different syllables. G-I is ji, and N-E-R is ne. The I and the N are not in the same syllable, and so no nasal sounds are triggered. Imaginer. So we said that vowels plus N or M in the same syllable produce a nasal sound, which is usually true. However, there are a few exceptions worth noting. One is when the vowel is followed by a double N or M in the same syllable. The sound is no longer nasal. Here are some examples. Bun. Not bon, not nasal, but bun. Programme. Année. Now again, this is all about what falls in the same syllable. So let's compare femme, woman or wife, with emmener, a verb that means to take a person somewhere. We see the combination EMM in both words, but the pronunciation differs. Femme is a single syllable. A vowel followed by a double N or M in the same syllable is not nasal. EMM is pronounced am here. Femme. Emmener, on the other hand, has 3 syllables. EM, ME, NER. EM is alone in its own syllable and therefore remains nasal. En. So even though they both appear to have an E followed by a double M, because of where the letters fall in the syllables, femme is not nasal, but the EM in emmener is. Emmener. If they haven't already, these distinctions will come to you naturally as you continue to study and speak French. With that said, let's go over another exception. When a vowel is followed by N or M and another vowel, the sound produced is not nasal. An example is the word for friend, ami. Although A and M are next to each other, because the M is followed by a vowel, the letter I in this case, the sound is not nasal. If we look at the syllables, we can see why this is. The first syllable is A, followed by the syllable MI. Since the A and the M are not in the same syllable, they don't produce a nasal sound. Compare the following pairs. The first word in each pair is nasal. The second word in the pair is not nasal, as the N is followed by a vowel. So we have fin, nasal, but fine, not nasal because of the vowel E. Un, nasal, but une, not nasal. Sain, nasal, but saine, not nasal because of the E. En, nasal, but an, not nasal again because of the E. And a final note before we look at the individual nasal sounds. Sometimes nasal sounds are lost as a result of what we call liaison, when a usually silent letter at the end of the word is pronounced when followed by a vowel or a mute H. So for example, we have the word bon, B-O-N, which means good and is nasal. Bon. When followed by a vowel or a mute H, bon loses its nasal sound. So happy birthday is bon anniversaire. Not bon anniversaire, but bon anniversaire. The N is pronounced because anniversaire starts with a vowel. Another example is un, un, which means a or one, and is usually nasal. However, when followed by a vowel or a mute H, we do hear the N. For example, a friend is un ami, not un ami. We pronounce the N, un ami. With those notes out of the way, let's look at the various nasal sounds individually. The combinations an, en, am, and em make the nasal sound en, oftentimes represented in dictionaries with what we call the IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet, as the symbol you see in parentheses here at the top, which looks like an A with a tilde. En. Here are some words with the nasal sound en. Blanc, dent, dent. AN and EN make the same nasal sound, so DANS and DENT sound the same. Dent. Enfant, chambre, temps. Some notes to consider. Yes, there's always something to consider when it comes to French. It wouldn't be French otherwise, n'est-ce pas? So anyway, the word examen, which means test, is pronounced examen and not examen. The EN here sounds like a, which is usually triggered by combinations such as IN or AIN. Examen. Also, again notice that these combinations, AN, EN, etc., need to occur in the same syllable. Otherwise, they're not nasal. So, for example, the EM in the word for obviously, évidemment, is not nasal. We have a double M followed by a vowel. If we look at its syllables, we see that the E and the M are not in the same syllable, so the nasal sound is not triggered. Évidemment. The E and the N at the end of the word, however, do appear in the same syllable and are therefore nasal. Ment. Évidemment. Another exception comes into play when the letter E with the accent aigu, or the letters I or Y, are followed by EN or EM. In that case, EN and EM are pronounced ah, the nasal sound usually triggered by IN, AIN, etc. So, for example, European in French is européen. E with an accent aigu plus EN is pronounced ayant and not ayant. Européen. IEN, as we will see later, is pronounced ien, as in rien, nothing. And moyen, which ends in yen, is pronounced moyen, un, moyen. Let's look at the nasal sound triggered by I, AI, EI, and Y followed by N or M. Un. This is often represented in dictionaries by the symbol we see here in parentheses that looks like an E with a tilde. Un. Here are some words that feature the nasal sound un. Vin, pain, rein, simple, fin, rince, sympa, syndicat. Note that it's common nowadays for many French people to pronounce these combinations in the same way that UN and UM are pronounced. Un. For example, if we compare the words 20 and 1, 20, 20, has the nasal combination IN, which we have said is un, so 20. UN is pronounced un, 20 versus un. However, many people pronounce these two words with the same sound. 20, un. Now let's talk about the sound on, triggered by the combinations ON and OM. In the dictionary, this sound will often be represented by what looks like a backward C with a tilde. On. Here are some words with the nasal sound on. bon, pont, monde, non, tomber, plomb. A notable exception is the word for Mr. or Sir, Monsieur. In theory, this word should be pronounced monsieur. In reality, it's pronounced monsieur. The M-O-N sounds like me, M plus the French E, and the second syllable is pronounced sieu, so monsieur. Let's talk about the combinations UN and UM, which trigger the nasal sound This is represented in dictionaries by the letters OE together with a tilde. Here are some words with the nasal sound lundi, aucun, commun, parfum, humble. Look at that. No notes. C'est un miracle. So we'll move right along to the combination OIN, which is pronounced ouin. A W sound, w, followed by the nasal IN, which is un. But as I mentioned, oftentimes nowadays, IN is pronounced un. So while I personally say ouin, you may also hear ouin. At any rate, here are some words with the nasal combination ouin, ouin. Coin, loin, soin, besoin, point, moins. Let's move right along to our next combination, IEN, which is ia. So we have the letter I, pronounced I, followed by a y sound, as if there were a letter Y, and the sound a, ia. In dictionaries, this sound is represented in IPA with what looks like a letter J, and the E with the tilde that represents the sound a. Ia. So here are some words with the nasal sound ia. Chia, bia, lia, tia, devient, italien. Just when it looked like we might get along without an exception slide. Well, these exceptions are just reiterating what we've already mentioned, so again, when a vowel or vowels are followed by a double N or M in the same syllable, the sound is no longer nasal. So chien, CHIEN, is nasal, but the feminine form with two N's, CHIENNE, is not. Chienne. Masculine, chien, nasal. Feminine with a double N, chienne, not nasal. Same thing with tienne, the feminine form of the masculine nasal tien, meaning yours. Or deviennent with a double N, as in il, elle deviennent, they become. Because of the double N, the verb is no longer nasal. Deviennent. Singular, on the other hand, that is, he, she becomes, is nasal. Il, elle devient. But plural, with a double N, is not nasal. Il, elle deviennent. Italien, masculine, meaning Italian, is nasal. The feminine form with two N's, however, is not. Italienne. Masculine, italien, nasal. Feminine, italienne, not nasal. Another note, which we've mentioned several times, whether a sound is nasal or not is determined by whether or not the combinations belong to the same syllable. So when IEN is in the same syllable, it tends to be nasal. Ia. However, if the letters are separated across syllables, the pronunciation changes. So the word for customer, CLIENT, is pronounced client because the I is in a separate syllable from the EN. EN in its own syllable is en, giving us client. Same thing with ingrédient. Because the I is in a separate syllable from the EN, we get ingrédient and not ingrédient. Let's look at our final combination, ION, which is pronounced ion. This is represented in most dictionaries with what looks like a J and the backward C with a tilde that represents the sound on. Ion. Here are some example words that include this nasal sound. Lion, station, nation, attention, émission, création. And that's that. That brings us to the end of our lesson on nasal vowels. Not so bad, right? We'll have additional lessons on pronunciation in the future. In the meantime, if you found this video helpful, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Until then, à la prochaine. See you next time.